Honorable Lawrence MacAulay, ministre des Anciens Combattants et ministre associé de la Défense nationale, Son Excellence, Monsieur l'ambassadeur Michel Miraillet, ambassadeur délégué de France au Canada, Dr Dean Oliver, vice-président intérimaire et directeur général du Musée canadien de guerre, Brigadier à la retraite Ernie Beno, directeur Association du centre de Juno Beach. J'aimerais aussi souligner la présence du député M. Luc Desilets. Distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, veterans, friends, thank you for joining us for this announcement here on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinabeg. Comme vous le savez, depuis plus de 120 ans, les Canadiens servent en grand nombre, mettant leur vie en danger dans des guerres et des efforts de soutien de paix partout dans le monde. Des grands conflits du XXe siècle aux opérations militaires modernes, le Canada a une longue et fière histoire de défense de la liberté, de la paix, de la démocratie et des droits de la personne quand et où on s'attend à ce qu'il le fasse. J'aimerais aussi, durant mon discours, me présenter, dire que je suis Emmanuel Dubourg, député de Bourassa et président du comité permanent des anciens combattants à la Chambre des communes du Canada. The service and sacrifices of our people in uniform is commemorated at monuments and memorials here at home and in many of the places where so many Canadians gave their lives in the service of their missions. Today, our focus is on Normandy and Juno Beach. I'd like to invite Dr. Dean Oliver, Acting Vice President and Director General of the Canadian War Museum, to say a few words. Please, Mr. Oliver.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dubourg. Thank you for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, honored guests, it is my very great pleasure to welcome you this morning to the Canadian War Museum. You are present today in a place of memory. It's a place of many other things, of course, place of education, place of research, publishing, exhibitions, digital creations, celebrations. Last week, it was the site of a whiskey tasting and a bankers meeting, though not at the same time. Mais d'abord et avant tout, c'est un lieu de mémoire. La mémoire vivante du Canada, qui rappelle comment les conflits humains organisés nous ont changés et comment nous avons changé le Canada à notre tour par le sang et le feu. The museum's connections to D-Day, to Juno, as some of you, I'm sure, are aware, are simply legion. Its planning and design reflected lessons we learned from field visits to museums and battlefields and other historical sites throughout Northwest Europe. Ces collections comptent des dizaines de milliers d'histoires personnelles, d'œuvres d'art, d'objets, d'armes, de lettres et d'enregistrements provenant de toutes les branches militaires et aussi de civils. The command trailer for General Harry Crerar, who led the 1st Canadian Army in Northwest Europe, is just over there. And the German Panther tank, 4th to my left, is a Normandy veteran, captured there by Allied troops. In our Normandy gallery upstairs is Forceful 3, a Sherman tank of the Governor General's Foot Guards, which landed in France in July of 1944, one of the few tank veterans that still survives. And near it is the Victoria Cross of Major David Curry, awarded him for his actions in the fierce battle at Saint-Lambert-sur-Dive in August 1944, a battle during which he didn't sleep for 3 days. Au fil des ans, les rangs des bénévoles du musée ont été remplis par vétérans de Normandie. Nos programmes et partenariats ont englobé le Centre Juno Beach, le Mémorial de Caen et d'autres organismes avec des missions similaires. The late Ernest Coté, who some of you may have known, D-Day veteran, civil servant, diplomat, is one of many witnesses who've shared with this museum their personal stories of the invasion. Coté, un franco-albertain suave et urbain, un fier vendu dès le début de la guerre, était le planificateur principal du Georget pour la 3e division d'infanterie du Canada, qui devait atteindre Juno Beach ce matin-là de juin. As he said to us in his interview, he felt every moment the weight of responsibility for everything the force would need, from food and ammunition to road signs and crosses and medical supplies. He would himself land before noon on June 6th and later be decorated for heroism under fire. D-Day was not any battle. It was the decisive moment in the Western Allies' long road back from the defeats and humiliations of the early war years. La complexité et l'intensité de l'opération, la plus grande opération amphibie de l'histoire mondiale, dépasse l'imagination. Des mois de planification, des mois d'accumulation de stocks, de formation et de construction, toute la collecte et l'analyse des renseignements nécessaires, the spreading of fake information to deceive the Germans as to the actual later point of attack, the preparatory reconnaissance, the bombing, the practice landings, specialized weapons, vehicles, and tools that were created, the endless repetition, and all of it, ultimately, in the end, dependent on the vagaries of weather, surprise, luck, and sheer human force of will. Pour le Canada, à lui seul, la journée elle-même a impliqué près de 15 000 soldats, à commencer par les parachutistes qui ont sauté dans la bataille dans la nuit du 5 au 6 juin. Plus d'une centaine de navires de guerre, soit environ un tiers de notre force navale totale, et des centaines d'avions allaient des avions de chasse aux bombardiers lourds. They formed part of the greatest military effort our country has ever mustered in a conflict that spanned the globe. And we, of course, on that June morning, were only one of 5 such beaches over nearly 100 kilometers of French coast, facing perhaps the most heavily fortified positions at the time in all of Europe. I add, too, that every soldier, flyer, and sailor, every doctor, every nurse, every chaplain that day in a Canadian uniform was a volunteer. Conscription for overseas service here having not yet begun. Leurs lettres et les journaux intimes reflètent leur fierté et leur peur, leur mal du pays, leur ennui et leur conscience omniprésente, malgré les difficultés et les misères de la vie à l'étranger, l'importance de leur service. By nightfall, despite the furious German resistance up and down the beach, D-Day had been won. The Allies were ashore in their tens of thousands. Canadians were the farthest inland at sunset, but hundreds of them had fallen, the first of thousands more to come. Les citoyens français avaient eux aussi terriblement souffert, d'abord de l'occupation ennemie, puis des bombardements et les batailles que la libération allait entraîner. D-Day, for all of us, is more than a titanic battle. It reminds us powerfully that the defeat of great evil requires great effort, that such effort cannot be borne quickly or alone, and that the bonds forged in war of comradeship and grief, gratitude and hope are worth the effort of their preservation. Ces liens restent tissés dans la fibre de notre nation, dans notre sens de l'identité, et forment encore le nerf de nos amitiés internationales des plus précieuses. Ernest Coté, the D-Day planner I mentioned, a hero who would adamantly never have accepted such a title, had a personal motto dating to his time as a young lawyer that defined his professional life in public service. It was, faire ce qui doit être fait, do what must be done. And so, on June 6th, they did. Thank you all for helping us to remember. Merci, monsieur.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oliver. And now, I'd like to ask the Minister of Veteran Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defense, the Honorable Lawrence MacAulay, to make today's announcement. Please, Minister.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Mr. Ambassador, Brigadier General Beno, Dr. Oliver, thank you for your history lesson. It's so important that we remember. I want to welcome everybody here. My colleague Luc Desailly, Member of Parliament, thank you for taking the time to come. It's so important. This is a big day for Canada, a big day for veterans. As Dr. Oliver said, the halls of this museum are full of stories about what Canadians did in Normandy and elsewhere in Europe and around the world during the Second World War. In France, their service and their sacrifices are remembered right where so many of them came ashore in June the 6th, 1944. The Juno Beach Centre overlooks the grounds where Canadians fought so hard so long ago. It pays tribute to the 45,000 Canadians who lost their lives during the Second World War, including 5,500 killed during the Battle of Normandy, and those 381 soldiers and airmen who died on D-Day. Several months ago, we learned of a proposed condo development that was to begin construction right next door to the centre. The development would be going on grounds where so much Canadian blood was spilt, and in order to secure the peace and freedom that we have today. As you would expect, our government was and remains against any development on these sacred grounds. Progress is inevitable, but some parcels of land should never be touched, never. And the grounds around Juno Beach are among them. In Paris last spring, I spoke to France's Minister of Remembrance and Veterans. We agreed on the importance of Canada and France to honor the sacrifice of Canadian soldiers who fell at Juno Beach. And we resolved to work together to protect the historic site for France and Canada. Today, I am pleased to announce that our government and the town of Rocher-sur-Mer has reached an agreement and puts an end to that condo development. We are contributing nearly $4 million towards the investment and will negotiate a 99-year lease to protect the site from any future development. Memorials like the Juno Beach Centre keep alive the achievements and sacrifices of those who served Canada and the world in times of war and peace. And all of us who have benefited from the service must always stand up for the preservation of those commemorative sites. I want to thank the Juno Beach Centre Association for being an essential ally as we work towards this solution. And I would particularly like to thank the Government of France for being such a key ally in this difficulty. In the times we live, it is significant that both our governments recognize that we need to commemorate and preserve the memories of those who fought and died, and it allowed us to prosper in this world. I am so glad that from this point on, the grounds around Juno Beach will be preserved and protected from future developments from this time on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister MacAulay. Si je peux me permettre de répéter très rapidement en français, le ministre nous parlait des grandes contributions qu'ont fait les Canadiens sur les plages de Normandie, dont à Juno Beach à partir de 1944. Il nous disait que leur service est commémoré au centre Juno Beach, qui surplombe les terrains où nos Canadiens ont combattu si durement il y a si longtemps. Plus tôt cette année, le gouvernement apprenait qu'un développeur prévoyait de commencer la construction juste à côté du centre. Un ensemble de condominiums devait être construit sur les lieux sacrés où tant de sang a été versé pour assurer notre paix et notre liberté. Le gouvernement était et reste opposé à tout développement sur ces terres. Après des discussions avec le ministre et son homologue français au printemps, le Canada et la France ont convenu de l'importance d'honorer le sacrifice des soldats canadiens tombés à Juno Beach. Et ils ont décidé de travailler ensemble pour protéger ce site historique pour la France et le Canada. C'est pourquoi le ministre est si fier d'annoncer aujourd'hui que les gouvernements du Canada et de la France, avec la ville de Courseulles-sur-Mer, ont conclu un accord pour acheter les terrains entourant le centre Juno Beach afin de les protéger de tout développement pour les générations futures. À cet effet, le gouvernement du Canada contribuera 3 millions d'euros à l'achat des terrains et négociera un bail de 99 ans afin de les protéger. Sur ce, j'invite maintenant son Excellence, M. Michel Miraillet, ambassadeur délégué de la République française, à prendre la parole. Monsieur l'ambassadeur.
Monsieur le ministre, messieurs les parlementaires, monsieur le directeur, je voudrais d'abord remercier chaleureusement l'honorable Lawrence MacAulay, ministre des Vétérans, pour avoir pris l'initiative de cet événement destiné à célébrer dans ce magnifique musée de la guerre l'accord scellé entre le Canada et la République française à propos du site mémoriel de Juno Beach. Thanks, Minister, for inviting me. Il y a plus de 75 ans, des Canadiens que nous n'avons pas oubliés ont très courageusement combattu les forces de l'occupant sur les plages de Normandie. Vous l'avez rappelé, le 6 juin 1944, peu après 8 heures du matin, 15 000 soldats canadiens ont débarqué dans le secteur dit de Juno Beach. Ces héros, venus de tout le Canada, d'un océan à l'autre, ont dû ramper, courir sous le feu avant d'atteindre et de faire taire les canons, mitrailleuses et les mortiers de l'ennemi. Puis après, ils sont entrés dans des villes de Normandie. Les habitants surpris ont entendu certains d'entre eux parler français avec un accent qu'ils ne connaissaient pas, mais qu'ils ont immédiatement associé à l'espoir de la liberté reconquise. Durant l'offensive, des centaines de soldats canadiens ont péri sur le champ d'honneur de sable et d'écume afin de contribuer à la réussite de l'opération Overlord. Over the course of this both tragic and glorious day, the heroic sacrifice of these Canadian combatants who came from across the Atlantic paved the way to the final victory. Minister, dear friends, be assured that France remains fully aware of the debt it owes to the Canadian people. In this respect, the French Embassy has, since 2014, and in collaboration with the Canadian authorities, processed close to 1,300 files with a view to presenting awards and honors to Canadian veterans. The vast majority of these veterans were involved in the landings in 1944. Pour vous donner un exemple, en septembre 2022, un décret du président de la République a nommé chevalier de la Légion d'honneur un vétéran canadien âgé de 104 ans, habitant à la ville de Sydney en Nouvelle-Écosse. Ce héros canadien avait perdu l'une de ses jambes dans l'un des combats pour reprendre l'aéroport de Caen-Carpiquet. Il recevra sa décoration prochainement. car la France honore tous ceux qui ont contribué à la libération de notre pays et de notre continent. Et nous souhaitons poursuivre ce travail de reconnaissance aussi longtemps que possible. It is for all of these reasons, Minister, that the Canadian Juno Beach Memorial Centre, located in Courseulles-sur-Mer in Calvados, is a monument to a unique and defining moment in the shared history of our people. The emotion provoked here by the dispute related to the land near the Juno Beach Centre was very legitimate, given that many Canadians care deeply about the preservation of this memorial site. So do the French people. President Macron had engaged with Prime Minister Trudeau in order to come to a resolution, and you were a major actor of this, Minister. For several months, we have been working to arrive at a solution. Your ministry, the Préfet du Calvados, who played also a crucial role of facilitation between all parties, the offices of the President of the Republic and of the Prime Ministers in Paris, our embassies, the commune of Courseulles, and the Juno Beach Centre. And I would like also, he's not here with us today, but to thank our former Deputy Minister, Mr. Ledwell, who has been a very important and appreciated partner throughout this process. La solution juridique et financière à laquelle nous sommes parvenus pour mettre fin au projet immobilier privé prévu à proximité du centre équivaut à une sanctuarisation du site de Juno Beach pour des décennies et je dirais même pour toujours. Cet accord avec la commune permettra aussi de développer ce site mémoriel, de l'agrandir, de le protéger de toute interférence et d'en faire un lieu de recueillement, ce qu'il doit être pour les générations futures et pour les plus jeunes au premier plan. The settlement of this dispute is therefore a further success that we can attribute to the quality of our bilateral relationship. Our countries are linked not only by an exceptional partnership, but also by a close friendship that has lasted these past 400 years. Indeed, we share the same values and commitment to freedom and human dignity, which we must always be ready to defend against the relentless attacks of inhumanity and oppression. The situation in Eastern Europe, a region suffering in the face of the Russian aggression, is a tragic demonstration of the necessity of fulfilling this duty. As in 1944, Canadians are again standing shoulder to shoulder with their European allies against the war waged by Russia. And I would like once more to take this opportunity to acknowledge Canada's mobilization in support of our Ukrainian friends, but also to express our readiness and strong wish to set new strategic ambitions of cooperation between France and the French and the Canadian armed forces in the future. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur. Please now welcome Brigadier General Retired Ernie Beno, Director of the Juno Beach Centre Association, who will say a few words.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dubourg. Mr. MacAulay, Your Excellency, Dr. Oliver, and distinguished visitors today, guests. This is a great day for the Juno Beach Centre. But first, I'd like to introduce Eve Vaillancourt, who has been with the Juno Beach Centre for over a decade, and this is such an important part of her life. And she has been the image of the Juno Beach Centre in the media across Canada, in France, across Europe. And I'd like to have her have an opportunity to say a few words as well. I'd like to also introduce Mr. Alex Fitzgerald-Black, Alex, right here, our Executive Director of the Juno Beach Centre Association for the past 4.5 years. And it's, and I'd like to say a special word to our friends in Veterans Affairs Canada, many of whom I haven't seen in 3 or 4 years, and some of whom I've never met personally ever before, but we've dealt with each other in this great partnership that we have between ourselves and the Veterans Affairs. For nearly 3 years, the Juno Beach Centre has been in a battle against a condo development adjacent to our museum. This project threatened the commemorative and the educational efforts of our site. Those educational and commemorative efforts were created by our founding fathers who were actually D-Day vets who created the Juno Beach Centre. They had a vision, and their vision was to tell the story of themselves and their friends of the battles of Juno Beach, the battles of Normandy, and the battles of World War II, where Canada played a major role in peace and security in the world, and the liberation of Europe, of course. They created a Juno Beach Centre as a private initiative. And thankfully, they had support of the Government of Canada, Veterans Affairs Canada. And the Juno Beach Centre was threatened by this development. It was threatened economically. It was threatened commercially. It was threatened in terms of security. And just the very image of a condo development on the very ground, as Mr. MacAulay has said, the very ground where Canadian blood was shed almost 80 years ago. So through the help of many in Canada and in France, we found a resolution to this issue. And I can't thank Veterans Affairs enough for that. Marie-Ève?
Grâce aux efforts de plusieurs, le site de développement de condos sera vendu à la ville de Courseulles-sur-Mer avec le soutien du gouvernement du Canada. Le terrain sera ajouté au bail de 99 ans existant du centre Juno Beach. Ce règlement assurera la préservation du centre et la présence commémorative canadienne en Normandie pour les générations à venir.
We, the board of directors and our patrons of the Juno Beach Association and the director and staff of the Juno Beach Centre in France, and particularly Natalie Worthington, who the minister has met a number of times. We wish to thank Mr. MacAulay personally. Thank you for your efforts. When things were going really rough, you went ashore. You went to the Juno Beach Centre and you did a reconnaissance. You found out what was going on and you made decisions. And we can't thank you enough for your personal involvement in this battle, another battle. I'd like to thank Your Excellency in Canada for your efforts, the efforts of your staff at the Embassy in Canada, but also I'd like to thank Canada's Embassy in Paris for the great efforts that they've done to help us through this battle. Additionally, the town of Courseulles-sur-Mer has been in a partnership with us. It's been a struggle. It's been a 3-year battle, and they've stuck with us along the way, and they're with us into the future. So we can't thank them enough. But I really do want to thank the thousands of Canadians who spoke up to save Juno Beach Centre, and the thousands of French who spoke up to save the Juno Beach Centre. Their voices were heard. They are the families of veterans. Many of them are veterans, modern veterans. And they said, this is important. And they stood up for what was right, as Canadians always do. Marie-Ève?
Ce développement majeur annoncé aujourd'hui nous aidera à préserver le futur du centre Juno Beach, un phare en Europe qui fait rayonner ce que le Canada a accompli pendant la Seconde Guerre mondiale et par la suite durant les décennies post-guerre. Le centre Juno Beach rappelle aux Européens que le Canada a répondu à l'appel en 1939-1945 et démontre que celui-ci est depuis un acteur majeur sur la scène internationale, un pays sur lequel la communauté internationale peut compter et qui continuera de jouer son rôle afin de contribuer au maintien de la paix et de la stabilité dans le monde.
We know that all those who served in World War II and their families are very proud of the Juno Beach Centre and where we are today, and proud to see it staying. So with the beach secure, once again, the Juno Beach Centre can enhance its important work as a living memorial that connects people of the past with Canada of today. In the next 2 years, we'll have the 80th anniversary of D-Day. That will end the Battle of Normandy, which will be a very big event in France, and it'll be the last event that veterans of D-Day could possibly, last major event that they will be able to attend. And I do hope some can still make it. But we also have a busy program at the Juno Beach Centre to develop the Faces of Canada room. And it is a room that shows the Canadian efforts in peace and security around the world from World War II till now, and they are significant. This is tremendously interesting to the people of Europe, the Dutch, the French, the Belgians, the British. They like to know more about Canada. They like to know what Canada has been doing since World War II. So this isn't just a museum of artifacts. This is a museum that shows what Canada is all about. And working with Veterans Affairs, we're going to be showing a lot more about the modern veterans, because they too have many challenges, but they too have many accomplishments. At home, they're serving in the east of Canada today on duty. They're serving in Latvia. They're serving all over the world, and they continue to do so. So we want to show that in our museum. But on the land that we're talking about, working with Courcelles, we envision a commemoration park, a commemorative park, a park that will show what Canada's all about, what Canada has done in World War II, all the theaters of war, and what Canada has done since World War II for peace and security in the world. Before closing, I'd like to offer a personal thanks to His Excellency Monsieur Stéphane Dion, our ambassador in France. And before he was the ambassador in France, he was doing important work in Germany, with the EU, and in the country of Armenia. Yet he had the time to reach out to us and promise us that he would visit the Juno Beach Centre at the earliest opportunity, and I understand he's going to do that in the next week or two, and he'll get to meet Natalie Worthington personally, and she will be very pleased to see him. So, but Mr. MacAulay, our special thanks to you. Our special thanks to, I don't want to single out any member of your staff or the Government of Canada, but the Government of Canada has been behind us, and we know that it's been at the highest levels in the Government of Canada and the Government of France. And we can't thank you enough. We have now saved the Juno Beach Centre, and thank you for helping us keep it secure for the future and the near term, but the long-term future on the sacred ground where Canadians landed on 6th of June, 1944. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Beno and Madame Vaillancourt. Tout comme M. Beno l'a fait pour parler de l'importance de préserver Juno Beach pour les vétérans, je peux aussi me permettre d'ajouter que le comité permanent des anciens combattants aussi avait déposé un rapport dans lequel la recommandation était unanime du comité. Et nous avons un représentant, un membre du comité aussi, en la présence de M. Luc Desilets, qui est là avec nous. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's announcement. Again, thank you for everyone to join us. If desired, our speakers are available for any questions or communications folks will coordinate with you. Monsieur le ministre, Monsieur l'ambassadeur, distingués invités, mesdames, messieurs, vétérans, merci et je vous souhaite une excellente journée. Merci.